to go to the environmental office in Toronto for the interview for a telecon with Jean-Marc Comtois, who's the Chief of Astronaut Training, Dave Williams, he was the astronaut who interviewed us. I can't remember the name of the woman, she was a representative for the Canadian Space Agency, an independent. And got there, their systems were down, so you arrive at 9 o'clock for the interview, which is supposed to be at 9:30. At 10:30 they're still trying to fix the system, so not the perfect scenario to be completely relaxed. But anyway, it went ahead. It's a 1-hour interview, 8 standard questions that they ask everybody. Some of them fairly straightforward. Fortunately, you're sitting at a desk, and you, for me, I just cross my hands underneath the desk, so I appear completely relaxed, so they can't see what's happening to my hands. Because on the 7th question, the 7th question was, do you think there'll be a conflict of interest? I think that's all it was. When the scenario was, you've been selected as a Canadian Space Agency astronaut, you're in NASA, you're at NASA training to be an astronaut. Do you think there'll be a conflict of interests? And I'm thinking, okay, I'm not sure, because at this time, you're trying to put out of your head, this is the most important interview of your life. You know, spent 25, 30 years of your life just leading to this, everything in one hour. It's extreme pressure, right? So you're trying to appear relaxed. You think you've given good answers to the previous 6 questions, and then this bombshell comes out with, no background to it. And so I asked them to rephrase the question, because I was thinking, okay, well, what sort of conflict of interest are they thinking about? And she just repeated the question verbatim, word for word. She didn't rephrase it. So my fingernails are going into my hands underneath the table. Actually, when I got out of the interview room, my hands were bleeding. So my nails had gone so far through the skin. But anyway, I actually met Dave yesterday, and he remembered me. So he did say I gave good answers to the questions. Which is why I got through the next stage, which was Saint-Jean, Saint-Hubert. So this is where the Canadian Space Agency is based, in Montreal, or just south of Montreal. So there are 39 of us. They put us up in a hotel, all of us in 2 groups. Usual meet and greet the evening before. Being an athlete, I'm sure it's the same as for the other people. You're looking for weaknesses. You're looking at, okay, who's a strong candidate, who's a bad candidate, who's not going to make it, who's going to make it. So I identified David Saint-Jacques straight away, and obviously Jeremy, there's excellent candidates, and Christian Otto. Christian, he climbed Everest in 2008. That's a good thing to put on the resume, right? He's a pilot, again, good thing. He's got the scuba diving. He's an emergency medical doctor, but not just any emergency medical doctor. He burned through one marriage. This is a common factor for astronaut candidates, is divorce. He burned through one marriage because he was the base surgeon in Antarctica twice. He's got the American Exploration Medal. I mean, very, very few Canadians have got this. It's a very, very rare event for even American to get it. But he's got this medal because he went down there twice to be the base surgeon. Fantastic resume, absolutely superb. I did select him. But, so he was there. He was in my group. So I did robotics. So we'll get to that in a second. I'll just go through this first. So I did robotics, flight operations, basically did the Canadian Forces pilot test, questionnaires. We answered 1,500 questions in one afternoon for psychological evaluation. And I tell you, that's just, you're actually filling this in with a pencil, so your hands are cramping up. The first one was the Minnesota, I can't remember the names of the questionnaires, but one was, that's the one, yeah, 652 questions on that one, and then there were 2 others. They don't evaluate this at this stage. What they do, this is for the psychiatric interview for the final 16. And what happens in that interview, they sit you down and they have all the evaluation from the psychological questionnaires, and they say, this is you. And they describe you exactly, almost exactly, based on the responses that you give in these psychological questionnaires. It's pretty uncanny. One of the questions that came up over and over again was, do you tease animals? I've got 3 cats at home, I tease them all the time. But I'm thinking, okay, am I going to be a bad person now if I say I tease animals? But I mean, my cats enjoy it. I mean, they throwing them around the room, spinning them on the floor, and doing things like that. Is that teasing? Is that harmful? Do they think I'm going to be harming animals? The other one was, which really annoyed me 6 times, because you have to do this to stop yourself from cracking up, when you're answering 1,500 questions in one afternoon, you're trying to think of things to keep yourself sane. So I was keeping track of the questions that repeated themselves over and over again. One of them was, do you like poetry? And I was so tempted to write on the questionnaire. I say, look, you've asked me this question 4 times. I've told you 4 times I do not like poetry. What's this got to do with being an astronaut anyway? So, but anyway, so there are a lot of questions like that. One of the questions that they didn't have was, one of the questionnaires was one of the ones they give to the American astronauts. And one of the questions, which I remember on that from before, you're in a line of, you're driving on the road, there are 10 cars ahead of you. It's a clear road, it's a straight road. Do you overtake the first 3 cars, the first 5 cars, the first 7 cars, or do you overtake all 10 cars? Okay, if you overtake the first 3 cars, then you're too cautious, you're not going to be an astronaut, surely. If you overtake the first 5 cars, you're in between, you're not neither a risk taker nor or you're being too cautious. If you overtake the first 7 cars, am I being too much of a risk taker? Sure, if I overtake the first 10, all 10 cars, I'm too much of a risk taker. How do they evaluate that? So you're asking yourself, how are they evaluating these questions? One of the questions they had a long time ago in NASA was, a standard question was, you have a 50-50% chance of coming back from a Mars mission. Do you take it? Those people who said yes were immediately eliminated from the astronaut selection. They asked the other half of the astronaut candidates, they asked, okay, you have a 10% chance of being killed on a Mars mission. Do you take it? People who said yes, they made it through to the next round. So they have all these strange questions that they ask you at various stages, and you really have no idea how they're going to evaluate it. And it's the same with these psychological questionnaires. They have a matrix, obviously, and it's impossible to get hold of these answers on the internet because you have to be a registered psychologist. I mean, people try, I mean, everybody tried to get hold of these psychological questionnaires before. I even tried phoning one of my friends at Simon Fraser University who was a psychologist, saying, look, can you get me the answers to these psychological questionnaires to see how you rate them? And she said, no, she couldn't do that. So you had no idea how they were going to evaluate these psychological questionnaires. So those are selecting. That was a select-in stage. They're looking at skills that they want you to have as an astronaut. The next stage was survival and damage control. I'll get to that when I get to the slides. And then finally they got the last 16. Nobody was over the age of 40. I'm not sure if to read anything into that, but Christian, he was over 40. I was over 40. Like I say, you can drive yourself insane trying to think why they didn't select you, so it's not worth the time really. And then the announcement, David St. Jacques, who I met 2 months ago, he's enjoying his training down in Houston. And they reported to St. Hubert, started earning $92,000 a year. That's the basic salary of an astronaut. Goes up to $166,000. I'm sure Chris told you that, because he's very frank when he gives his talks. He was the astronaut who gave us the talk about what it is really like to be an astronaut. I don't know why they had him talk about that, because if you don't know what it's like to be an astronaut when you're in the final 31, you've got no business being there. But anyway, he was there for a question and answer session. And he told us that was his salary, $166,000, and that's what you can expect to earn. But like I say, most people would pay the Canadian Space Agency to be an astronaut, so salary is completely unimportant, really. So this is what it looked like in the first stage. So remember going back to St. Hubert, St. John. One of the first days, went down to the Canadian Forces Base. So I did my basic training here, so this is one place I never ever wanted to go back to, ever in my life, because basic training is not very pleasant. But anyway, so this is where I did all our physical fitness tests. I'm sure you've all done this, the multi-stage shuttle run. So it's the case of last man standing, the guy who's still going at the end. Christian was the last guy standing in his group, got to I think level 13. I got to level 13 or 14, I can't remember. I'm getting a bit old now, I used to get up to level 17. And then we did that in 4 groups. We did pull-ups, press-ups, sit-ups, static tests. What else we did? Swim test, that was fun. 5 laps in, some ridiculously slow time. We had to jump off a 3-meter board, tread water for 10 minutes, So those are the physical tests.